Welcome,
hey,
everyone, to Sound Check with Ridenour and Robinette.
Little delay
Why,
there.
I thought I was supposed to do the intro. Why are you just jumping right on the intro?
I
Can I
can't
do
wait.
it again?
I'm so excited.
Can I just do it myself for 1 second?
All right, go ahead.
Whew, jeez.
Man, oh man.
All right. Welcome to Sound Check with Ridenour and Robinette. Very excited to have all of our friends, subscribers tuning in to this amazing podcast. The response has been fantastic, and we're really excited to be here today. And I want to say a quick shout out to Jason Sedowi, our producer and our editor and our graphics designer and whatever else he does. We're not really sure.
He cooks, he cleans, he does the lawn. He's a good guy.
He's a good man, and thank you very much. And we're really excited. Today is a big day for our podcast.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking, if I should say so myself. We're going to have an amazing guest, and this is where I'll let you take it, Keith.
All right, buddy. So welcome, everybody. Today's guest is our good friend, Cyrus Bolooki from Newfound Glory. Yes, that's right. Cyrus will be here in a little while to talk about the band, talk about the history, talk about new things going on. Great band. I've known the guys since they were probably 14, 15, 16 years old. So we're very excited about that. And when we come back, we're going to dive into the differences in putting a band together now in the 2000s versus putting a band together back in the 70s and 80s. So stick around. It's going to be a great show, a lot of fun, and we'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Sound Check. We're really excited. Once again, today, we're going to have an amazing time. Keith, I just want to say it's exciting to have you here sitting next to me on the couch, and if you're shoving your far up my ass as possible is another thing that we can do. Just want to say a couple things. After looking at a few of these podcasts, because we're new at this, so
we're beginners.
We're beginners. So we're finding out the things that, work and some of the things that don't. And we always love to get your feedback and opinions. So please, leave them below and make sure that you subscribe. So let's talk about a couple of things that bothered us or bothered me, because I like to be honest and straightforward.
Okay.
Everybody see this foot? Do you see that foot right there? So we talked about the foot wiggling. It's a little thing. Then we talked about my chicken neck. I didn't have this chicken neck 10 years ago, and I got this chicken neck thing. It's freaking me out. So I thought about wearing a turtleneck. I'm like, that's not natural. But the foot, these are things we look at in the podcast. Or things like that.
I'm going to change feet. You're not going to see it as much. Is that better?
Anyway, so it's just weird looking at yourself in camera. It's just not comfortable.
You'll notice we don't do close-ups.
Yeah, eventually
for a reason.
We're going to get really
comfortable. In fact, if we could put the
it.
cameras another 10 feet back and there was room, we probably would.
And another thing is, man, isn't it funny? Like when you do this and everybody's got to put their 2 cents in.
Well, the minute we do this, though, we knew that was going to happen. Everybody's going to. It's like, oh man, it was great, but.
Well, most of it was good feedback, but let me tell you something. For anyone, even myself with my condition, that can't pay attention to anything, it's hard for someone to really sit into that podcast and listen to that dialogue if they're not interested. That's why you got to kind of pull them in. You got to ask the right questions. You got to get a guest who's interesting, and the banter back and forth. So there's a trick to this.
There's got to be energy. I mean, we spoke about it in the first podcast. What can we do to keep people's attention? Most people are busy. So to expect somebody to sit around for an entire hour
or a half hour,
I mean, if they can last a half hour, it's great. Right. So we got to keep it interesting, and that's why getting feedback from people. Hey, I think you guys should do more of this. Hey, is cool. Because we're wide open for any and all of those suggestions.
Right, to figure it out as we go.
And somebody could come up with something so crazy that we could just discuss it, and maybe it's really, really funny, and everybody gets a real kick out of it.
Yeah,
so in the meantime,
it's important for them to leave their comments and feedback, is what you're saying?
That's how we figure it out.
What if we get blasted hard? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because people can be brutal.
We put it out there.
All right. Hopefully they'll dig it. Well, I know that you had a topic that you wanted to talk a little bit about with my musician friends as well.
I thought every episode we try to come up with something so that people that aren't maybe professional musicians, they're hobbyists, or they do it once in a while, or maybe they want to get into it. So we try to do some topics that are interesting enough to them that, they could figure out what direction they want to go. So today we thought, since we've been doing it for so long, we might talk about the differences between putting a band together today in the 2000s versus back in the 70s or 80s. Huge differences in terms of promotion in particular, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, promotion, because now we got the internet.
Yeah. So I remember my first band, I think I was telling you this earlier, we did our 8x10, but we also made bumper stickers. We made Frisbees with the name of the band. We had T-shirts, hilarious, it reminded me of the Partridge Family, with our faces across the front, all smiling, that we would hand out. We had matchbook covers, because back then, everywhere you played, everybody smoked. So we would leave the matchbook packs on all the tables. So that was the only way. And then as you got into the 80s, what I remember is if you were playing at a certain club, say the Crown, and you were doing 4 or 5 months through all of them, you'd have your picture appearing, blah, 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 and then you have the next band, the next band, the next band.
At the club.
At the club. So when people came in, that's how they figured out who was going to be here next. And if you did the circuit and came back around every 2-3 months, they'd know, okay, this is how you built your fan base up there. Today is totally, totally different. There was no internet back then. I mean, when we first started, there was not even cell phones, So you would put a picture. There was no CDs. So you weren't making CDs or recording really right at that point.
Right.
Whereas you put a band together today, which you're handling how many different bands every week as a booking agent?
Well, we do just under 500 shows a month.
That's crazy.
So most of them, there's a high percentage that are solo and duo acts. But then again, you didn't stress. We stress is it an original band?
No, I'm just talking.
Or even a cover band, or just any band in general, right?
I just mean.
Promo.
Let's talk about cover bands first. So back in the day, boy, are we aging
What about flyers?
Ourselves.
What about flyers on the telephone poles?
There was a time where definitely you would flyer the parking lot. Remember, like the Plus Five and all those clubs like that? If you were coming up the following weekend, you would just flyer the parking lot.
Yes.
But originally, people weren't even doing flyers back in the 70s. I don't remember flyers. I mean, we were so young. And today, if you put a band together, you put an ad up, you put a Facebook page up. Do they even do EPKs?
You had a band in the 70s?
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn,
I was 13.
Bro.
I was 13.
Ooh, you don't look it, my friend.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
You look very young. You sure you had a band in the 70s?
Old as dirt, my friend.
Yeah, that's dinosaurs and shit back then.
So anyway, let's talk about today, all the bands that you book.
Okay.
Let's just in general, what do you require from them before you start booking? So in other words, EPK, do they do that, or do they have to have a Facebook page? Give me the rundown. Give our guests, our friends a rundown.
It's a long, drawn out, but I'm going to make it real short and sweet. Most of the acts that we have, most of them, 90-something% of them, already work for us. They don't need anything. Right? All the bands that work for us don't need an EPK. If they were brand new, we still call it an EPK. If they send us a good website that has video, there are dates on it, photos on it, set list on it, a good strong picture, we'll call that an EPK. But basically it's just their website. Right. That'll work. The best way that we bring in people to the agency is there's definitely a screening process. And of course, Mama Bear, my partner, has to do the screening, or I'll do some screening. But things have definitely changed. It all depends on the room. There's some rooms that don't require it. I could just get a phone video from somebody strumming his guitar on a couch, and I kind of know if he cover 3 or 4 hours or whatever the gig is, then I trust it and I go through the process on my own. But a lot of people just send it through our website. Our website on Main Event Talent, on my business, there's a submission page. And you go to that submission page, you put all the information there you possibly can. It doesn't have to be filled out in its entirety, but it has to have some information on there. That starts the process, the ball rolling. Truth of the matter is, there's 200-300 acts out there. It'd be solo or bands, whatever. They're all looking for work. So you got to kind of you got to figure it out. We've been doing it long enough to where we know kind of what we're doing and where we're going. As far as the advertising we were originally talking about, all of them should be doing advertising,
On
and
their
they should
own.
be, and they should be on their own, and they should be tagging. Tag as many people as you can. Tag friends, family, tag other band members, tag the club, because tagging is a big thing. Facebook, Instagram, and so on and so on. So yes, they have to do their own advertising. Also, I sure hope the club is doing their own advertising. Hopefully, they have a media or a social media person who handles those posts and pushes it. You don't want to shove it down everybody's throat, but you definitely got to make sure that the club does their part as well. So you got both entities, you got several formats and platforms, and everybody's got to do their work together.
So it's totally different if you think about it.
It's all different.
I mean,
than it
we
was
used to
back
play
then,
the candy store, the playpen, Summers, all that. Nobody, there was nothing. Just your picture at the front
how was
door.
it then? I guess people just knew
I think there
was
was so many people went out back at that point. Right. Not that they don't now. And I think one of the other things is a band would play at one place a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. So if the band was going to be there 2 weeks, I suppose the people that came in would tell their friends, and it'd be more word of mouth back then.
Well, the marquee.
Or the marquee outside.
On the marquee outside.
Yep. But the fact that, I see you put up stuff when Southern Blood's playing, it's like, can you imagine if you could do that back then? You guys are playing at a show and you're posting stuff while you're playing, or when you take a break, or when the other band's playing. I mean, that's huge if you think about the difference. Now, that's one aspect about putting a band together today.
It's a promotional end of it.
Right.
The advertising.
Back in the day, you were in high school. You got the lead singer because he owned a PA and he had a van. Okay, let's face facts. A lot of that happened.
That's great. It's a Mark Wahlberg movie.
It really did happen. He may have been your best choice, but he's got a van, he's got a PA. And it's not just a singer, it could be anybody.
He's got a PA, he's in.
But, I mean, think about it.
I know, it's funny you said that.
I mean, today, though, I guess people put stuff, when I had Marquee, I would put stuff up on the bulletin board, so-and-so looking, but because of social media, it's so easy to put yourself out there. I know when we had the studio in Nashville, people were constantly looking for musicians, and they would come in, they would audition at studio, and they'd be looking for a guitar player, and 15 guitar players would show up. Back in the 70s and 80s, basically somebody in the band knew a guy who knew a guy who knew another guy, and you had them come in somewhere and you'd play together. And, just trying to get guys in the same neighborhood was tough, but that's what I think that's what we did. We found guys that either went to the same high school or to a high school close by. And I don't know if people are doing that kind of stuff anymore. I mean, you're playing with a guitar player who lives an hour and a half away.
Yes, I am.
Wouldn't do that back in the 70s. It would have
never happened.
You can't.
Tommy Snellgrove hooked me up.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known those people because of social media, today it's a lot different.
It's funny. Now I just had a vision. When I used to go to your old studio, they had all those little
right on the bulletin board up front.
Or they'd have the flyer with the little things you could take their number.
Pull off the number.
And where also I used to go to MAE, Musicians Exchange.
Yep.
And MAE, wasn't that your buddies on there, or Ace Music? All the music stores had them.
Yeah.
They had a big bulletin board or whatever, oh my God, that's so funny, man.
And you would stand there for like an hour.
Yes, and just look at all the music, because you needed a singer, guitar player.
Right, you'd move this flyer out of the way, take the push pin down. Okay, I'm gonna put this guy in, I'll put the flyer back up, and then take the other guy back.
Funny, man.
Not doing that
just
today.
Weird, because I would have never, I didn't think about that, so you just mentioned it. And that's, your studio is big for that, because you had nothing but a flux of musicians every single day, every single night going through there.
And it's crazy because that is actually at that studio is where we actually met Cyrus when New Found Glory first came in. I have pictures of our daughter, who at the time was, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. I have pictures. I wish I would have been able to get to the storage unit to find some of them, since Cyrus is going to be on today. But I have pictures when they first started, and they used to come to the studio when all those ads were on the bulletin board.
So we're talking mid-late 90s? 90s?
Middle of 90s. We opened in 93. They were probably there. We'll find out today. Maybe 97.
Yeah, I think they started it. I think that's the year they started,
97, 98, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, enjoy. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come right back, and hopefully we're going to have Cyrus here.
We'll be kicking butt. See ya.
Hey, everybody. This episode is presented to you by the Southern Blood Band. If you want to come see us, we have tons of shows lined up for 2024. you can go to southernbloodband.com or you can go to our Facebook page. We'd love to have you come out and see us. It's always a good time, good Southern rock and roll. And that's about it. So go to southernbloodband.com or go to our Facebook page. And thanks for tuning in. Here we are, everybody.
Hey.
Sound check. Ridenour Robinette. How about it? Woo! Really excited today. What is happening with sound check? Well, guess what? We have an amazing guest. Keith, would you like to introduce our guest?
This is our good friend Cyrus Bolooki from New Found Glory.
Ooh, Cyrus Bolooki.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good to see you, Cyrus.
All right.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
So I have known Cyrus a long time. I mean, I think we probably met when you guys were 15, 16, something like that.
It was teen something.
At the original Ridenour studios. And, I have pictures of Kirsten when she was 4 or 5 with you guys holding her and giving her high fives. Mm-hmm. And so from there, you guys, I want you to tell the listeners the story and, we'll interact and ask questions. But for those of you who don't know, this is Cyrus, and we're going to talk about New Found Glory and their road to stardom. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Cyrus. So give us a little something, how the whole band started and how you guys all met and what happened next.
Okay, so ironically, my first kind of interaction with New Found Glory, or we were called a New Found Glory back then.
Oh, that's right.
Was after I talked to them a couple times, kind of through friends, maybe hung out or went to a local show or two, they asked me to try out for their band because they had already been a band for about 3.5 months.
Okay.
And that tryout was at Ridenour.
Oh, okay.
At the first Ridenour.
That's
and so
right.
I probably met you that night, or maybe not, because we were just some kids down the hall practicing. And I remember going to Ridenour and playing. With me, I had a drum set at my house, but I'm a drummer, by the way, obviously. And my parents didn't really like me playing drums in the house because they're too loud. Yeah. So I actually learned all the New Found Glory material on my bed or at school on my desk or whatnot. And I went in there and I played, and I guess I played well. They loved it, but they had one comment for me, which was, "Can you hit a little harder?" That's like a side note that to this day, almost 30 years later, I try to pride myself on being one of the hardest hitting drummers in my genre.
Because I've heard you rehearse by yourself at Marquee.
Yeah.
You definitely hit hard.
Yeah, there's a reason why at Marquee, usually I'm not in the first room near reception. I'm kind of towards the back, probably because you guys might be able to hear me. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so long story short, that was almost 30 years ago. We started in 1997. I got in the band a few months afterwards, and it's been like a steady climb since then. One of the biggest things about New Found Glory when I joined the band was, to me, they were a very hard-working local band. Now, again, we were teenagers, right? We were all in high school.
Right.
I had a small band with my 2 best friends in high school. I grew up in Hollywood, Florida. They grew up, or they kind of formed in Coral Springs.
Coral Springs, yeah.
So I'm like an adopted kid to Coral Springs in a sense.
Right.
But, the band I had in high school where I grew up, we played, I think, 1 show or 2 shows in an entire year, and those 2 shows were 2 days in a row. We literally, all we did was just practice at my friend's dad's furniture warehouse, right? I didn't even know there was like a local scene like that where people would go to places like Ridenour and rehearse diligently for their shows every weekend, or at least have a couple shows a month. And that's what New Found Glory was doing as like 17-year-olds. Instead of going out partying on the weekends, they would go try to find a local club to play. They would go work the shows. They would do whatever they could to try to get on to these, local punk shows, or even some of the kind of regional, national acts.
Right.
And that's what we did for our first few years. And it literally just like slow and steady climb.
So it was original music from day one.
It was original. There's sprinkle a cover here and there, but the covers were punk bands. There was nothing crazy. Now covers do play a little part in our history going forward, because we have since released 3 CDs of covers, but we were never a cover band from the start. It was original music. It was influenced by
songwriters right off the get-go. Teenage songwriters. Love it.
Influenced by like the California punk stuff, the skate punk stuff, and then other like punk rock, and the emo movement was really big in the like early or mid 90s when we kind of came out. And just all this stuff that we loved, we tried to mix it all together, which we felt nobody was doing. And I think that, along with Jordan, our singer, who has a very distinct voice, it was a little more higher pitched than most people that were our peers. I think we put all that together, and it was something new that people hadn't really heard before.
Right. That's cool. I just remember being at the studio, and you guys would all come in, and nobody was running around outside on the breaks. I mean, you guys went in there, and you would just rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse.
And that was the thing. Again, I came from we're, rehearsing because we're hanging out. And we called it rehearsal, but it was more like, this is what I want to do on the weekends with my friends. this was more of a job, and
like
not to
yeah,
but not to make it like it wasn't fun. This was awesome, and nobody wanted to work their jobs at the mall or at some pizza place or whatever.
Right.
We wanted to play music, and we had a couple guys in the band that were like, "Look, if you want to play music, you have to go and do that. You can't just like mess around. You got to write songs. You have to record them," which I had already recorded a 5-song demo before I even got in the band, literally a few months after they started. And that's how I heard them first and why I loved the band. They were playing shows at least 2 to 3 times a month wherever they could. They were advertising stickers. I remember being at Warped Tour before I was in the band, and there's like these guys on stage, just random, so many like stage potatoes on stage, friends of the band. And there's this one kid with a backpack throwing stickers out. And they're floating down, and I catch one, and it says A Newfound Glory. And that kid was Ian, our bass player. And he seemed to know everybody. And so what he would do is he would go to shows early. He would hang out, bands that he loved. He would hang out. He would always bring stickers, CDs if they had them, try to befriend the band if he could. And then after the show, he would go to the parking lot, and he would hand out flyers for the next show. I mean, this is marketing 101, but these are 16, 17-year-olds.
We were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah, we were.
Marketing.
Yeah, and it's as if it's like no big deal for them to do that,
Yeah,
Let me ask you, what venues, like when you first started in the band, what were the name of any of those venues they would allow you to go in and do an original show at that time? We're talking late 90s, right?
Yeah, late 90s. So we were just talking right before we started recording that the two of us probably, even though we were going strong at the same time, I probably couldn't frequent the venues that you were playing because we were underage, right? So we can't go to your normal bar on Fort Lauderdale or down in Miami or any of that kind of stuff. Right. And it was either venues when we got to some, if there was a show that we could play, or there was a bar called Club Q that was in Davie, off Davie Road Extension.
Yeah.
A little biker bar. I'll call it a pool hall, I guess, to be nicer.
Right.
But that was the place that we ended up playing a lot. I mean, the first time I actually saw Newfound Glory in concert, I believe I think it was called the House of Rock.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Lighthouse Point or something like that.
Yeah, JW's House of Rock.
Yeah, so for me, and I didn't even know what that venue was, just somebody told me to go to the show. Again, I got into music. I had an older brother who played guitar. He got into like metal and rock and stuff, and I would take his guitar and kind of mess with it when he wasn't at home, and that's how I kind of got into rock music. And then the drummer thing just fell in my lap because all my friends in high school wanted to play guitar, and I was like, I guess I'll play drums. And when I got into all that kind of stuff, things happened fast. Like I remember my first concert I ever saw was, I don't know if it was a Zeta Fest, but it was a Zeta sponsored thing. And it was Zakk Wylde, but it was Pride and Glory, his like solo project, I think it was called.
Okay.
And it was down at Bayfront, Bicentennial Park down in Miami. Yeah. And I watched him play the Star Spangled Banner with a guitar behind his head. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. That next night, I went with my older brother to Corrosion of Conformity at the Button South. Complete opposite. I mean, small, packed club, super dark and loud. And I loved that too. But I was in the back and I was like checking out the sound guy behind me being like, oh, this is kind of crazy how this works. Like he can move stuff and it sounds different. And just fell in love with it right then, but didn't realize how big this like local scene was.
Right.
Club Q was a huge place that we played. Not huge, it was small in actual size, but
huge
because we were able to play there.
I remember that, yeah.
They would let us, there was no promoter or anything there. I don't think they had a talent buyer or any of that stuff. I mean, we knew like the bartenders, right? But they were cool enough to allow us, and this is as 17-year-olds, to organize our own show, sell tickets in a sense, or at least get people to come out and pay some kind of some kind of door tab, I should say, cover. And then whatever happened. And they allowed us to just set up whatever we had, figure out PAs, all that kind of stuff. And again, looking back, this is insane.
Yeah.
Because we're like 17-year-olds and they put all that faith in us to figure this out.
Yeah, that's great.
You can't even think about doing that right now without licenses and permits and you name it, right? So it was that. It was some house parties. There was like a skate park, I feel, out west, somewhere in Pembroke Pines. We played a couple times. Just wherever we could, honestly.
So when did the initial thing happen? Because I seem to remember it was at the studio. I remember some record guys coming in when you first got the initial record deal.
Yeah, so there was one small thing that happened before that, which again, we would randomly be able to play in our estimation, larger venues like Button South or Spanky's in West Palm Beach or something like that, because we were friends of local promoters. And so every now and then, I think Slammy Productions was one of the big promoters back then.
That.
Every now and then there would be a national act that would come and they wanted that opening band that would sell some tickets. And so they would hit us up. Hey, can you be that fourth band on, first band or whatever, and get some people to come. And we would. And we'd always try to make an impression. But the big thing is from the very beginning, marketing, right? And it's without even really calling it marketing. What we would do is we would always flyer the shows. We would go to shows before we were going to play, flyer them to get those people to come to our shows, stickers, CDs, you name it, even giving it out if we needed to.
Right.
So we go and we're fans of, local music and or just punk rock, whatever. Go to any shows we can to promote our band. I remember going to see the band MXPX play. MXPX was they still are a national act, play big venues everywhere. We saw them play, and I brought press packets, which of course nowadays people don't. It's different. We were
just talking about all this earlier. Yeah.
8.5 by 11 Manila envelope.
Yeah.
Inside of it, I had a couple.
I had
a couple press clippings from maybe New Times or something. Right.
Yeah.
I had a copy of our
Rag
CD.
magazine.
Exactly. I had T-shirts and stuff, and I gave it to like a tour manager that we met, and was like, "Hey, can you give this to the band?" They're like, "Yeah, sure." And you immediately,
exactly.
Like, okay, sure. That's going right out the window.
Right.
They saw it. And the reason why I know they saw it was during that show at Spanky's, before I even met the band, MXPX said something on stage about our band. Hey, have you guys ever heard of A Newfound Glory? If you haven't, we just checked out their CD. It's awesome. And I was like, is this really, like, I hope people are hearing this is insane.
Right.
You're being acknowledged.
So lucky there, right?
Yeah,
because again, just have to remind people that does not happen.
Yeah.
It just happened. Well, about a month later, I get and I'm going to date myself, a page on my pager. I'm a student at University of Miami. We're still doing our thing, playing local shows here and there. And it's this random number, like 360 area code or something. And it ends up, it's a Seattle area code. I call it, it's the manager of MXPX. They're like, hey, we're going on tour. We got 4 shows in Florida. We'd like you guys to open them up. Of course, those are our first big shows we ever really played, at least tour-wise. And we ended up, again, the marketing thing was like, wait a second, we just recorded 12 songs at Tapeworm Studios in North Miami. And it's like, we got to get this out. And we got to release it by that first show so we can sell them at the concert. And we ended up releasing that CD without artwork because we couldn't get it printed fast enough. And we just told people, hey, write your name and address. We'll send you the booklets, which that was a whole nother story in itself. But we ended up doing that and releasing our first CD ourselves, or it was on Eulogy Records, a local record company, putting it out by that MXPX show, and just kind of did whatever we could to promote ourselves. And we would go and play like New Jersey on a weekend. There were some message boards on the internet at that time that you could go on and kind of just talk to people about music. And we ended up finding out people would list tour dates on there. And a lot of it was in the Northeast because there was a big movement parallel to us with our like kind of hardcore punk scene going on down here. There was one happening in the Northeast. And we'd find out about a lot of these shows up there. We would hit people up and be like, hey, I see there's a show in Jersey on a Saturday. Can we come up and just maybe set up, play and then sell merch? You don't even have to pay us. They're like, yeah, sure. So we would hop in a van. We'd drive all the way up to New Jersey on Friday night, overnight, get there Saturday during the day, set up, play Saturday night, Sunday morning, drive back, because we all had to be at school. Our parents were like, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot miss school.
Right.
And we would do that, and we did that for a little while. And that's when the record company started, I think, noticing, because we started getting a following outside of Florida, mainly in the Northeast.
Right.
And so that goes back in to your story, where we had, there's a label called Drive Thru Records from California that heard about us. They came and saw us at a pool party here in South Florida. I can't even remember whose it was. And a skate park the next day, signed us, put us on some tours with smaller bands, and they had an upstreaming deal with MCA, and MCA Records, major label. When they finally saw us kind of getting some traction, they called and they said, we want to put you in the studio with a bigger producer. And that's when we came back to Ridenour.
Okay, yeah.
With that major label producer, if you want to call it, with us, and did our first record.
I remember holding Kirsten by the office when you guys kind of came in, and somebody in the band, I don't remember, it's the record company.
Yeah.
The record company.
You remember that?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was for us. That was like the first time that we had pre-production. So we went to the big room. We never played the big room at Ridenour. Past like through the store.
That's where I have.
We couldn't afford.
I remember.
Yeah, nobody could afford that.
I remember you guys were over there taking photos. I was holding Kirsten, and one of you guys were giving her high fives.
Yeah.
I told these guys, I said, I wish I could have got to the storage unit to find those pictures, because I'm sure I have a box of all those kind of pictures. It's in there. But yeah, I remember you guys were in the big room.
Yeah.
The alley, we called it.
Yeah, we spent like 2 weeks there every day. Again, business, like making sure that we focused on what we were doing. And it was, let's go through all your songs. This is a producer named Neil Avron.
I remember, yeah.
And so Neil, up to that time, he had worked with that band Everclear. He had done a whole bunch of other stuff, but one of his big things was there was a band called SR-71. They had a song called Right Now. It's kind of a one-hit wonder, but he engineered, produced, and he ended up mixing that song on a whim, and it kind of took off. They suggested him for us because it kind of sounded like us. Nobody knew what our style of music was.
Right.
But SR-71 was the closest besides maybe Blink-182 or Green Day or something.
Right.
And Neil came in and he showed us so much. I mean, we learned so much from that guy about songwriting, just musicality, kind of everything. And we ended up recording our first CD in Boca Raton at a private studio that's no longer there and releasing it. And this whole time, we were playing as many shows as we could. So it was crazy to be on a major label, but at the same time, it wasn't really changing much. I mean, we just hopped in our van and started going on tour right after our CD came out.
And you were already doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially down here. Like before we even got signed to a record label, we could probably draw easily 400 or 500 on our own. There was, again, a big music scene down here at the time, rock, and we could play with anybody. So you would have a show at, let's say, Club Q, and it would be New Found Glory, so like, this pop punk band. There would be a ska band. There would be a hardcore band, like a super heavy, almost death metal band. Everybody was cool being on the same bill. It wasn't as like almost segmented as it is.
Let me ask you a question, just to intervene.
Yeah.
So for our watchers and our listeners out here, when you say that, a lot of them don't understand the way the record deal process works.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's a lot different today than ever was before. So when you say you get a deal, I want people to understand it doesn't mean they got a check for $1 million and said, you're rich and go write some songs. So I'm going to ask a couple questions or dig in a little bit. So at this point where you guys are at, the record company says, okay, you're going to sign on this, and this is what you're going to get from us in return. So the record company is also obviously financing this gentleman, this producer. Tell me what else, how that works. Are they going to finance the whole process of the recording of that record, correct?
Yeah.
And they're also the rehearsal time, and you guys are doing full pre-production because once you get in the studio, that's where the money kicks in.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot more expensive.
It could be this much money. If you're not polished, it's this much money, correct?
Yeah.
So the pre-production is huge.
Yes.
This way you go in, track, drum track, guitar track, boom, you get the energy, the vibe, and then it's all mixed down and mastering.
Yeah, and 30 years later, we're still doing that same process because it is almost always, if not always, cheaper to figure it out before you get in the studio than to do when you're on
some of the bigger bands who have
time.
billions and billions of dollars, like, talking about the big bands, they just show up at the studio and they just start jamming and start sharing riffs like, the old school Stones or whatever it may be. They may just create in the studio. Although I'm sure they have their own studio, so they won't be paying anything. But
yeah, budgets have changed completely since then.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a whole different world.
When you used to spend 150 grand to cut a record, I don't know of anybody who spent 150 grand to cut a record.
No, you would be in the studio for 6 to 8 weeks and it would be like it's nothing. And now it's like, well, let's do the drums for you can knock out 12 songs in 3 days. And I'm like, okay, sure. And they'll go to the nice studio for the drums. That's the only good thing about being a drummer is you always get the really nice room because you need the size.
The good mics.
And they're like, when we're going to do guitars and vocals, we just kind of need a vocal booth. So we're going to go to this overdub room and you're going to spend 4 weeks in a little closet type thing. Right. It doesn't even fit all you guys on the couch.
Right.
But we're going to do the rest of the record there. That's fine, right?
Right.
We'll be like, no, it's not. And they're like, well, we don't have the budget for it. So
that's how it worked. So you sat down. Did you have an attorney represent you at that age? And was there?
Yes and no. So almost ashamed to admit, but our first, if you want to call it, real record deal, besides local stuff here, which was handshake really more than anything, go to a friend and be like, hey, do you want to release our record? We paid for recording. We'll let you pay for the CDs and then you'll give us some or sell us some back. And that was a different thing. But the first major label deal, we signed it at the Bowery Ballroom, which is a venue up in New York, upstairs in a dark kind of side room with no attorney present. We did have a booking agent at the time who we actually still work with and kind of full faith that record deal was okay. And it wasn't as egregious as like record deals are now or as a lot of the bad stories you hear. It probably wasn't super favorable. I actually had read a book by then, and I'm very happy to say that I did, and I recommend this to everybody. It's called All About the Music Business, or All You Need to Know About the Music Business. Donald Passman. It's like a super famous book.
It's a great book. It's got the great cover, yellow letters.
Yeah, and it keeps changing and it keeps getting updated. So I haven't read it in 25 years, but I'm sure it's still current now, whatever the newest edition is. And I read about that, and basically I learned a couple things. First off, I learned you need to understand contracts, or at least be able to read through them, or else you're not going to know what you're signing. Second, everything is business in the music industry, right? And third, when you're a little band, nobody's going to give you anything.
Right.
But if you're Metallica, you can do whatever you want. So I knew we weren't Metallica. I knew we had potential, but at that time, we needed a vehicle. We needed, and not a literal vehicle, we needed a vessel, like a way to get
there
to more people.
And this was it.
This was it. So we signed a deal. It was like an 8 or 9 page deal in this dark room. And it was with this company, Drive-Thru Records, that then was upstream to MCA. Now it gets a little crazier, but they had their own deal with a major label. And the major label basically funded this record label, Drive-Thru, who financed the record. They ended up licensing our first record. And then they would pay for the studio time for releases after that. We would promise them, hey, we'll go on tour. We're going to cover our costs on tour. But you guys pay for the recording. You guys handle selling the CDs. We get some kind of a split off of that. And that's all negotiable, but you don't really have much power when you're a little band. And then, again, we took care of everything else, merchandise and all that kind of stuff, and they let us keep that. Nowadays, I hear, and I pretty much know, it's way different. Nowadays, labels sign people, and they don't just sign a band for recording. They want everything.
Oh, yeah, it's a 360 deal. Yeah.
Yes. So they want a piece of your merchandise and all this stuff, right?
And the biggest thing, maybe not in the last few years, because I've just basically been done more writing, but I see more people doing deals where, if they're getting a record deal, it's a 360 deal. But the biggest key, people are doing, a full record at their home studio. They want a distribution deal.
Yes, because there's no more, the recording costs are different now.
Right.
Rock music is still a little different because you need real drums.
You gotta have it, yeah.
When you get to pop, there's a lot of, it's mainly electronic. Yeah. Everybody has a Pro Tools rig or something. You can do it all on your laptop. And so, now people are just selling they're licensing their own CD, right? The record labels realize, well, great, we don't have to put as much into that, and we can concentrate on a marketing or something. But because we're going to make you big off of something we didn't really pay for, we want a piece of everything. We want your merchandise. If we get your songs in, a commercial or something, we want a piece of that. And we never did that, and we still don't do that to this day. Very lucky, because a newer band is not going to be able to.
You're getting a 360 deal if you're a new band right out of the gate, right?
Yeah.
That's it. We're getting a piece of publishing, everything.
You can look at it like this. A record label for us is a bank that will loan you money at 0% interest, and you don't ever have, it's a non-recourse loan. I mean, that might be too crazy to talk about, but basically you can get them to pay for recordings or give you money, and they will not ever say you owe it back to us right now. But you won't get paid until you pay that back.
They got to recoup.
Yikes.
Yeah. But for us, it's okay because we can still get paid on ticket sales, on merchandise, on all that other stuff while we're recouping, if we even ever do recoup some of those record budgets.
Right.
And then we have different contracts. So
that was your first.
Yeah.
So moving forward, so you do the record, you record the record. You said in Boca.
Yep.
So you do the record, and now you're touring the whole time. You're moving, you're hustling, you're making money because you have to make money. You have to work. Where are you at now? You're not still in school now. You're out of school.
So that was another thing we did as a band right before we got signed to MCA, right before we got upstream to MCA. We were still in Drive-Thru. We went out to California in our own van, just playing whatever shows we could along the way, super small shows some places. And our bass player, Ian, who was like 2 years older than all of us, so he was in college. The rest of us were just graduating high school. He actually pulled the Drive-Thru record, the brother and sister that owned it. He pulled them aside one day and was like, hey, I need you guys to basically call a meeting and make it seem like you are going to force us to drop out of school, or else you're going to drop us. Like, we can only have a deal if all of us drop out of school and focus on this full time. And this is because Ian wanted and knew that that's the only way to have a real band, is you have to focus on it. So he orchestrated this whole thing. We didn't find out till a while later, like years later. Yeah. Orchestrated this whole thing, comes to us, and I'm one of those people that's like, wow, this is a big time opportunity, and I think I have to put school on hold. Mind you, I have an academic scholarship, University of Miami. My father did the first heart transplant down at Jackson Memorial Hospital. I have big shoes to fill. I'm not supposed to be a musician. And I got to go to him and be
Oh,
like, hey,
my
let's make a
goodness.
deal.
Yeah.
Give me like
gosh.
2-3 years, at least however long I can put my scholarship on hold to just figure this out. Because if I don't try this, I will always regret
Yes, you'll
not
never
trying.
get another opportunity,
Absolutely.
probably.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I had to do that. But yeah, this is we basically just started with that record label, the drive-through record label, and then got upstream to MCA. We were just getting out, or basically had all dropped out of college, their first year of college. One guy was still in high school. He, just didn't.
How many records are you in now? To date. So 97. So how many years are we looking at now?
Yeah, this is like 27 now, almost.
27.
Yeah, 27 years, going strong. We've released, I think, 11 full lengths. I've lost count.
Records.
Yeah, so many like EPs.
Damn.
Yeah.
So when I saw you in Nashville that was the 25th anniversary show?
It would have probably been the 20th anniversary.
20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's right, because that would have been around 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2017 was 20 years. So we did like 25th anniversary stuff in 2022, but COVID was all weird also, so we had to like put things on hold and stuff.
Right. So 2018, because that's when you guys signed the guitars for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was cool. I was at that show. That was at the, it was in Franklin at the,
Was it that acoustic show that we played, or was it a?
No,
it
it's
was at
full
the
on.
daytime thing.
Yeah, it was like
The Franklin Music Hall.
the factory.
The factory.
The
sorry.
factory.
That's where they do a lot of the CMT Crossroads.
Yep. I remember I walked in, I went, wow. And then I remember you guys playing, and all I could think about was you guys at the studio back when you were younger,
Yeah.
And I think you guys were probably selling a lot of vinyl that night. Did you
That night, yes. I mean, there's a resurgence now for vinyl.
Right,
when
but
we
I
first
remember
out-
a lot of people were buying vinyl
Yeah,
that night
yeah.
when I was waiting to say goodbye to you guys.
Yeah, because nobody buys CDs anymore. Now they
Yeah.
all stream everything. And if you want to buy a physical product, which again, physical products, we make all the money on. I mean,
Right.
we obviously pay wholesale cost and then we sell them.
Right.
Everybody's buying vinyl.
So
now.
when you guys do a show now, are you still have a big merch set up at every show?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's key. We can't go on a tour or play a show without being able to sell merch.
Right.
And that's a huge part of our business,
Sure.
both at shows and online when we're, off tours.
Right.
Chad, our guitar player, he's like a mastermind with trying to curate new merch designs, up and coming artists or people that are already fans of us, or he's got some people that he kind of goes to tried and true. And I mean, you try to get merch that's either just directly related to whatever your newest product is. Sometimes you do off the wall stuff. Sometimes it's whatever's popular.
Right.
Maybe it's a tour you're going on. If you're going on a tour in the summer, well, maybe you sell, beach towels or something.
Right.
At that show, I think it was that we called it Breakfast. I guarantee you we had a coffee cup.
Yeah.
You play
I
into
just
this stuff
remember
because it's
the-
marketing. So
The merch area took up.
Oh, it's massive.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was like, damn.
Let me tell you something. I went to a few concerts, and I'll never forget this. Just off the top of my head, Tool.
Mhm.
Dude, when I tell you, when we walked into the concert hall, it was me and Scott Siepelman, I'll forget this. There was a line going a mile long, and I thought it was for hot dogs or beer. Dude, I'll tell you, you couldn't see the end of the line, and it was for the fucking merch, man. I was like, are you kidding? I didn't know. I know about the Taylor Swift thing, the Bruce Springsteen
Well,
thing.
listen, even
millions.
even Iron Maiden. You go to Iron Maiden show.
Mhm.
I remember.
Dude.
I remember them at BB&T one year. We were going up the escalator, and I looked down. I thought it was people trying to get in to the venue. It
it's a
wasn't.
merch line.
It was like a massive amount of people waiting to buy T-shirts at,
Yeah.
I don't know, $30, $40 a T-shirt.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
And forget the Taylor Swift thing. I remember in Nashville taking Kirsten to one of the Taylor Swift shows in the way back.
How much a shirt? Guessing around.
They had a cart, like a food truck, okay? And it was nothing but, there was a ton of them. But we were in this line, and I'm going, a hoodie, $80, $80.
Totally.
A vinyl record. Okay, this is years ago now. It's just crazy the amount of money on merch. Well, I think I told the story one time when we were talking here. I remember at one point, many moons ago, we were sending stuff, the band I was in, out to Doc McGee.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever we were working with, I think it was Paul Abdul's guys, Tolan, Frazen, I'm not sure, but they were telling us that when Bon Jovi first went out, I don't know if this is 100% correct, but their story was, whoever told me, he was getting $5,000 for his set, opening for Ozzy or somebody like Ozzy, and making $15,000 on merch.
Yeah.
People make more on merch than they do when they get paid, some of these bands.
When you're a hot band, you can. We were on a tour, one of our first tours after being signed. We were opening up first of 4 bands. We were pretty hot back then and selling a lot. And it was so much so where, and I won't name the main band.
Oh, come on.
Nah, there's no reason to name them. We've talked to them.
We need some dirt on this show. No one's watching.
No, it's all good.
I'm just kidding.
They clipped our merch. They literally said you can't sell 3 t-shirts, 3 designs. You can only sell 1 because we were selling more than them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's messed up because you're not really paying us much at all.
Right.
This is kind of our gas money.
This is how we get from one town to the next.
But they just didn't like the idea that we were eclipsing them, which, that happens. That's what music's all about. There's always up-and-comers. And if you're a smart headliner, you bring those up-and-comers with you because they bring a new crowd and then hopefully you grab some of them. But you got to understand that every now and then those people are going to end up far surpassing you. And that's happened with us. And we're cool with that. You bring the bands out and it's like, I remember when we brought you out when you were like this.
Right.
And now you're playing, arenas and stadiums.
Right.
And every now and then they'll hit us up and they'll ask us to come back out with them. Of course, we won't headline, but they're repaying the favor, which is cool.
I got to imagine, and I have no idea, but off the top of my head, one of the biggest bands for merchandise anywhere has got to be Kiss.
Yes, but that's different also. It's licensing.
Right.
So they're smart too because
they license all
he will stick that Kiss logo on anything. Coffins.
Yeah.
You can buy a Kiss coffin.
And it's really a beer cooler.
Yeah, whatever. But, that's a smart thing.
Speaking of money, a lot of our watchers or listeners, subscribers, when they think that you're a touring band or any touring band, of course, if you're not like this big band, but you're a hardworking touring band, they think that automatically you're making lots of money.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the realistic end of it. Okay, just because you did 11 records, that doesn't mean you've made millions of dollars. I'm not saying you're a case in point, but I'm just talking about hardworking bands that have been recording records and touring for years. We know it ain't like when we were kids. We can go buy a record, we can go buy a cassette, we could buy a CD, and you're getting a portion of that. It's not out there. It's all about streaming, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. But let's talk a little bit more about that because all the work and all the years you put in, 20-something years, let's be honest, you could have been a fireman and retired 7 years ago. You could have been a policeman and fired, whatever. You could have chosen a different line of work, or anybody could, but you've decided to tour the world and record and play music. So realistically, at this time, when you're not touring, I'm guessing, well, not guessing, I know this for a fact because a lot of my friends are touring. It isn't like the money just keeps pouring in.
Nope.
So are your guys, not to get into too personal, but your guys obviously have other hustles because you have to hustle, right?
Yep.
So talk about that a little bit and how because you have a family. I'm guessing you have a family and children,
I do.
And I'm sure your other band members do. Talk about that because I'm sure the listeners want to hear, the realistic end of it on the money end.
Yeah, for sure. So, as much as this is like Peter Pan syndrome in a sense, because it is cool. I get to go out there when I'm on tour and play a concert every night to people that they always stay the same age, even though I'm getting older and I feel like I'm 20 up there. And after the show now, I feel like I'm in my 40s, which I am. We make an honest living. It's hard work because it's a very specialized skill. Not many people can do what we do. But at the same time, you only have to maybe go on tour or you only get to go on tour a couple months out of the year. We are not a band because we're not all local anymore. I'm actually the only one who lives in South Florida now. So it's not like we can play weekend gigs. You don't do that anyways. You want to play 1 show or 2 shows a year in every city so that you can draw as many people as you can. So yes, we all do have side hustles.
Are you interested in playing in a local band while you can keep busy? Because I can keep you busy.
We'll see. We'll see.
I'm not joking either.
No, I know. So the biggest thing with me is, I'm a father. I have 2 kids and they're in school. I just came from lunch duty to come up here.
How old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
6 and 9.
Oh, no kidding. Great age. Okay. That keeps you busy.
It does. And my biggest thing is when we first started the band and we're all 18, 19, it's like, leave home for 2 months. This is awesome. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to work a regular job. Right. Now it's getting tougher and tougher because now I see my kids that, they're voicing, Daddy, I don't want you to go.
Right.
And it's like there's a little bit of a responsibility in multitude of ways. I mean, first off, financially, this is my job. This is my career. So I have side hustles, but nothing at this point. And maybe not even for the future, would ever bring in the same amount of money that I can bring in from the band. Doesn't mean I'm rolling in the dough or anything, but I can make an honest living by going on a few tours a year and doing what we do with selling CDs and all that kind of merchandise.
And you're home the rest of the time with the kids.
Exactly.
And the wife.
But also, I have kids, and I want to make sure that they have a decent life. And
that's right.
I grew up the son of a doctor. And again, not rolling in the dough, but we didn't have to worry about anything when I was younger. So my side hustle, I'm a licensed real estate agent. And I do that on the side. That's one of the greatest jobs you can have to mix with any other job, because you can turn it on and off like a switch. You don't have to go to work every day. And when you want to do real estate, you just go try to find it. When you don't want to do it, you just don't answer calls. So for our
listeners out there, if they wanted to use your services, was there a certain spot they can go to, either a website, or want to promote that before you leave, or we can put it on a snippet, because there are going to be people that might be interested in your service. So you're more than welcome. We could always insert that in one of our spots if you'd like, maybe later. I got a bunch of questions, so I'll let you just jump in there first.
I've always told, like, if I'm doing songwriting lessons with kids and they want to blah, 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 they want to be a writer, they're already an artist, and that, I always tell them the same thing. In the music business, the key thing I've always found out is you have to have multiple revenue streams.
Yes.
Okay? When I was in Nashville, I was writing with a guy who had, I'm not going to name his name or anything.
Oh, come on. You want to ditch the dirt. Nobody's watching this show.
Anybody give a shit? Anybody's watching this thing?
But check this out. He had, at least that I remember, 6 or 7 #1 songs with George Strait. Yet, he couldn't get a new publishing deal once CD sales started going away and all. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So he had to find, just like, I tell everybody, you have a couple good years writing, and now it's totally different. Let me preface that, okay? But you had some good years where you were writing and making, doesn't mean next year you're going to get the same. You got to have something else going on. I know guys there, and I use that because there's so many songwriters there, and I know so many. They're waiters. They're waiters, or they drive Lyft.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the music industry do that, because you can turn that on and off.
Literally
with the switch.
Yeah, absolutely. So as of today, all the guys are living around the country somewhere.
Yep.
What's happening next in the future? Are you still going to keep touring?
Yeah, of course.
Is you going to do another record? Or you guys, let me ask you this. How often do you guys get together and write, being that you're all in different states now? Yeah, so this is a job for us, basically. And it's always, there's stuff happening. There's stuff in the pipeline. You never just kind of stop. We will always have more tours. We're already planning tours for 2024. Records, basically, whenever we feel like it, because we now go and sign our own deals for records. We contact. Is it just distribution? You guys cover the recording? No, it's the same thing. We can if we want to, but there's no reason to pay for the recording yourselves at our stage, because we know we're going to sell CDs. So we go and we find a partner that we like their business model, or more importantly, we like their reach and kind of their whole just ethic around releasing records. And we say, hey, we want to do something with you, but let's make it like a joint venture. So it's like, let's have realistic expectations of how much it's going to cost and how much we think we'll sell. And then we'll split it, or maybe you guys put it up front, but we'll make sure it's not like these $1 million budgets. And at the same time, like, we don't need to come out of pocket. We can kind of run our business the way we need to, and everybody profits, That's what we do record-wise. And then, touring is always happening, so constantly working on that. I wish I could announce more, but I can't say, but people will hear that soon. So when you guys do tour, at this point, how long do you normally go out for? And if you do you fly? Do you go by bus? Do you go by car and van? How do you do it? Because I know Splinter vans are really popular now with a trailer. So it all depends on the situation. Lucky enough for us, we, for the most part in the US, will be on buses. There's budgets and stuff. We have a longtime manager, booking agent, publicist, all that kind of stuff. It's the same crew the whole time? Yeah, we have a tight crew, just tight team that's been with us for a long time. And we're very just active in our own business. We're not like a lot of people just think musicians like, I just want to go out, play shows and party. Like, no, this is my livelihood. If I don't know what's going on, it could be taken out from under me. I wouldn't even realize it till it's too late. So very active with that. As far as touring, it's,
you look at your budgets and you figure it out. But for the most part, it's bus tours. If we need to fly, we fly. If you got to fly in somewhere and drive a van, you drive a van. I mean, we're not ashamed to do that.
Oh God, no! Listen, when we had the backline company, I saw big guys from the 70s and 80s that would show up to a gig,
pickup truck,
and they got a trailer,
But why get a bus if you are playing one weekend of shows? The amount of money you need
everything
for
is budgeted. That's why you have one person who always looks at the overall. What's it going to be best for us? What are we going to spend? What are we going to get out of it? What goes in? What do we get in return?
Yeah, I remember.
Bus is a lot of money. I mean,
it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. 2007 or so, I was on a tour with an artist, and I got lucky and co-wrote his first single, so I got to do the radio tour. And when I went on the bus, I was talking to the bus driver one day, because oddly enough, this was Nashville, but he's from Hollywood, Florida.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we knew a bunch of the places and everything. So every once in a while, I would sit up front, and I remember him telling me how much it was for fuel, how much it was to have him.
And the band pays for all of that.
It was like, I started adding up the money. I'm going, these guys are spending radio promotions, $20,000 a month at least. The bus, depending upon how many days. Usually up there, you would go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, back home Sunday.
Yes.
But you're looking at $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month.
Oh, easily.
Between the radio promotion, the bus, the fuel, the driver.
Don't forget your own crew that you got to pay.
Yeah.
You have. We also have insurance and all that kind of stuff.
I have a funny question.
What's up?
So, when you guys are whatever the biggest bus tour you ever did, I never knew about this, and this is why some listeners might wonder. Really? A lot of the people in the band. You didn't have a hotel every night.
No.
Because you were traveling. But when you had a hotel, they would get X amount of rooms. But I used to find out a lot of people in the band or the crew would rather sleep on the bus.
In some ways,
because if they were on the bottom bunks, because of the AC, it helped. The AC was running all night when the bus was parked. It was easier for them to go sleep than go in and share the room with somebody.
Yeah.
Do any of your guys do that?
Yeah, and there's another thing too, because it's like if you get a hotel, what if your bus call is like 6 a.m. because you got to make that next show? Do I really want to wake up at 6 a.m. to play that night at 10 p.m.? No, I'd rather just sleep on the bus because I could sleep till noon if I need to.
Right.
So you go and you shower in the hotel, hang out until when you're ready to go to sleep, and then you just go sleep on the bus. It does suck because usually a hotel bed is way more comfortable than the bus.
But I always thought it was odd. I used to go, why are you guys sleeping in the bus?
But see, the other thing is, like, for instance, with us, for the most part, we will have up to 12 people, because that's what a bus can sleep, has 12 bunks. We'll have 12 people, and at the most, and this is only in the last 2 or 3 years, we'll have 2 rooms for all 12 of those people, because you're showering and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to sleep in there, it's basically like luck of the draw, or if you realize nobody else is sleeping there that night, then you can go sleep. If you really want a room, great, go get a room, pay for it yourself. And I will do that every now and then, because yes, I'm getting older and I want to be able to like sit there and hang out with my kids, or I have there's other side hustles I didn't even talk about. I do a lot of stuff in music as well. So like I do production. I do a lot of like editing on the side. Like I have editing jobs I take on the road with me, and I get sent tracks. I do a lot of vocal editing and tuning and stuff.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I do that. I could sit there. I could set up anywhere, backstage or in a bus, and work and
put your headphones on and
make
go.
a couple $100 before I even hit the stage. And of course I'll do that. I'll do that every day if I can. I have the real estate stuff, but even I also go out now and I randomly will play with other bands. I've gone to Ridenour a bunch, either getting ready to record in the studio with a band. I have played shows with that band Goldfinger a bunch.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah,
you used to rehearse to go out and do those shows.
Yeah, because they would give me basically 3-4 days notice and then ask me to come play, and there would be no rehearsal. So I got to get ready myself. And that was my first call with them. I got a call on like a Tuesday, and they were playing Sunfest in West Palm Beach on that Saturday. And they were like, hey, can you learn a 14-song set? By the way, we're not going to rehearse. You can come the night before to the hotel room and like play on your knees or something just to make sure it's good. And I remember literally click my sticks off 1, 2, 3, 4 and play with Goldfinger with no practice.
Sounds like me every weekend.
Yeah.
Just show up and.
Yeah.
What's the? I got a couple questions real quick. What's the biggest show you've done? The biggest one in the 20-something years?
So probably one of the biggest would be. Well, we actually just played some of our biggest shows in Las Vegas. It's a festival
the Warped Tour?
No, When We Were Young festival. It's a yearly festival now. It just started a few years ago.
From it on your site.
Yeah, so we played back in October. I heard that there was something like 40,000 people a day there.
Wow.
We played some festivals in Europe, the Reading and Leeds festivals in the UK. Those are massive. That's probably maybe even 50 to 60,000, depending on when you're playing.
That's crazy.
I got to play, I'm sure it's not called this anymore. It might be called FedEx Field now, RFK Stadium, which is Washington, D.C., where the Commanders, they weren't called that back then. They were the Redskins. There was a radio station out there when rock radio was huge. It was like their Zeta Fest. What was there? It was called WHFS. And they would have the HF Festival every year. We played that 2 different years on a stage in a stadium.
What's the biggest band you supported?
So we've been on tour with Green Day before. We did a couple tours with them, as well as Blink-182. Those are probably the 2 biggest.
Heyday, 90s?
With Green Day, it was actually
2000s?
2004 when they released American Idiot. It was their resurgence.
Wow.
But it was an underplay tour for them. So they were playing arenas. And I watched as all that stuff was taking off. Their single, The American Idiot, was taking off. And it was cool because those are actually some of the most genuine guys I've ever been around. For however big they are super cool, super down to earth. Yet they're a band that has a wardrobe room every day. They bring a washer and dryer in road cases with them because they're that big. But they were so excited. They were, what did they put? It was like a UK outdoor stadium show that they put on sale while they were on tour with us.
Oh my God.
And it sold out in like 12 hours. And they were so giddy about that. Not in a pompous way. They were just blown away.
Just couldn't believe it.
I think they ended up putting 2 more days on sale. They sold out 3 nights or something. This Milton Keynes place in
Dude, I hope you got pictures from all this stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Give you memories to show your kids when you get older.
I do. I mean, I do wish that pictures were better back then because there was a lot of it was actual prints,
exactly.
Right? So it's not as accessible. I remember. I wish I remembered a little more because I was also in my 20s and a little more focused on let's try to hang out and have a good time tonight rather than like let's really be in the moment. But
I want to also talk about drums because that's one thing we didn't talk about because that's what you do.
Yes.
So instead of going through the whole process, basically you started out on drums. When did you get your first endorsement? I'm guessing you get some head endorsements, stick endorsements, cymbal endorsements.
Sticks.
And are you still with the same companies over the years? Has it changed out? And how does endorsements work today than they were when you first got your first few?
So I actually pride myself on the fact that I'm very loyal to brands because in my opinion, I search out the brands that I love and I go for it. And also been lucky that they've been receptive to me. My first deal was a stick deal with Vader Percussion, still with them. So I'm now
Vader. That's for just the sticks?
Drumsticks. I think it's 20 years now I've been with them. Coming up on 20 years, if not more. And I got that deal by finding an email address, or I might have even just mailed myself. I wrote a letter myself, and I said, listen, not give me free sticks. This is who I am. I'm in a band. We're playing these shows. We've done this and done that. I am having trouble buying the stick I want because when I go to a local music store in whatever city, I wasn't using like a 5A or 5B at the time. I was using kind of like a specific model. I was like, they don't always have it. So can I at least order from you? Like, basically, can you give me a vendor account? Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, it sounds great. Just tell us what you want and we'll let you order. And then they didn't charge me. And next thing you know, they're like, we'd like you to endorse our product. Because they were so taken in a good way, taken aback, that I actually reached out to them because they're like, it's almost always managers.
You're still with them?
Still with them.
And what size? Just curious.
So now it's their 5Bs, but they're special. They're called nude 5Bs.
What makes them special? Is it the feel? Is it the response? Is it because they don't break like they?
So a couple things. First off, Vader was the stick company I went after, and I'm not going to leave them until they do something to make me want to leave them. And they have quality, just product all the time. It's the same A&R guy, artist relations guy that I've been dealing with from very beginning. Super cool to me. Always been great. We've navigated through the music economy, COVID, you name it. Like everybody's cool and supportive of each other. Yeah, so I use these 5B wood sticks.
What about heads, cymbals,
so
hardware,
heads,
anything?
I'm a Remo artist. Same thing. I got my Remo deal.
Remo drums, Remo heads?
Remo heads.
Remo heads. And you've been with them.
They don't really make drums anymore. They make percussion, but drums. Been with them since like 2001. Zildjian cymbals. Been with them since 2001. Drums has changed a couple times. I have a DW hardware and pedals endorsement. I will use their drums when I rent. If I need to rent in some random place, they always have.
That's right. You don't bring your drums everywhere you go.
No, that was another thing. Yeah, there was something called September 11th that happened after we started getting popular. The first time we ever went to Australia, I flew with drums. I brought my drums. I just rented the hardware because that was a lot to carry. But I flew with my drums. And once September 11th happened, no way. Because first off, baggage fees went through the roof.
Right.
And second, nobody wanted to be carrying all these crazy cases around, having security stop you.
Right.
And I immediately have to start renting. So every now and then, I'll always fly with a snare drum. fly with my sticks, maybe a pedal, but I've tried to get myself, like wean myself off of needing my own pedal.
Right.
What about a tech?
So tech, I don't have to have a tech.
Perfect. So when you go to a gig, let's say you're on this tour, doesn't matter the situation, there's your back line, you go to sound check, you make your adjustments, tweak, boom, boom, you hit, you go on stage, you play, you're done, you leave.
Yep.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
See, people don't get that. See, people think you're going in there with all of this stuff and tons of production backline. I mean, other bands do.
Well, and we do in
case,
some ways, but let me tell you, I have a drum tech that comes out with us, but there's really only one reason why I have that drum tech. A, they usually do the job and sometimes better than I do because they spend more time on the drums, but that's not without me basically going out there at 12 noon when nobody's in the venue and I help set up because I want to. Because if I don't touch those drums before I get on stage, I feel like there's something wrong with them. You know, it's like foreign. And that's no knock to the drum tech because again, they can do this better than I can sometimes, but I just need to feel it, right? And I don't mind doing that work.
You gotta be confident that when you sit down, you're ready to rock and everything's in place and you feel good.
And what I have that tech for more than anything is that tech will notice problems as I'm playing before I can see them, and or I only have 2 hands and 2 feet and you can't do anything but try to play the drums. So if something breaks while you're playing, what am I going to do? Drop a stick just to fix it? No, they come over. Or right before we go on stage, if you're in a amphitheater in front of 20,000 people, I'm not going to walk up there and hit my kick drum because everybody is going to scream. So that's part of that's professionalism. You have your drum tech come out there and get everything ready while you're backstage.
You guys do any
it's part of the
tracks?
show. We do not play to tracks.
There are no tracks.
No tracks.
You go intro tracks.
We have an intro, but no click track. Everybody thinks we have a click track. No click track. I wear in-ears because I love recording. I love the way it sounds.
In-ears only?
Yeah, I wear in-ears. I have crazy hearing damage because I'm a drummer and I'm an idiot that when I was with Blink-182, playing in front of 20,000 people, I'm like, yeah, give me that wedge. Turn it up. Does it go to 12?
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I want to feel it. And I felt it and I'm still feeling it. And that's one of the reasons why I want to be on the bus. Is because if I go to a hotel room, they better have an air conditioner that doesn't turn off because I have tinnitus in one of my ears really bad.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate thing. You're young and you think you're invincible and you're not. And I always tell people, any little kid that comes to the show and they're like, yeah, I play drums. I'm like, you better be wearing earplugs. Please do. You need to. So we're all natural. Just, no tracks. If let's say I'm a little nervous, I'm probably going to play faster.
Yeah.
I had 1 or 2 shows where maybe I had 1 or 2 beverages before and I played slow and too slow, and that will never happen again.
Guitar player turn around to you and go, dude.
Yeah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm playing fast. Yeah. So we're very professional. One of the things that I do tell people all the time, because question almost inevitably comes up, how do you guys stay together? Like most bands, their average life is maybe 4 or 5 years, and that's if they're lucky, right?
Right.
This is 20-something, almost 30 years now going on, same lineup. And how do we stay together? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number one, we were all in this from the beginning. So there's not some random person that came in halfway through that doesn't really care. We're all invested the same way. Second thing is, I think we all had this common goal, at least ever since that meeting that Ian, our bass player, arranged with the record company.
Right.
The common goal was, you got to put into this what you want out of it.
Right.
And if you work so hard to be where you are today, why would you throw that away for something stupid?
Right.
Like partying too hard or like getting in some argument over why, somebody decided to sit in the seat you wanted to sit at Denny's or something like that.
Right.
This is all trivial, right? And we've had to keep each other in check, like your brothers or something like that.
Right.
But that's how everybody does it. And every band has kind of relationships
family,
like that. Yeah, it is. And these are my brothers, these are my confidants, these are my work partners for now 30 years. And when you are together 24/7.
Right.
And it gets tough, but at the same time, everybody I know, all the parents at my kids' school, no matter what they do, and a lot of them are way more successful than I am, I know sometimes they wish that they could be doing what I do. As much as a lot of times I wish I could be doing what they're doing because then I wouldn't leave home. I could come home at 5 o'clock every night and just collect my paycheck. But, so what we have is so special, and I would never want to give that up. And we do everything we can to kind of keep this going, and that's what we're still doing today.
Well, you could come by and play with me anytime, a Cagney Saloon or Galuppi's or Gilbert's Resort.
I'm of age now, so they'll actually now pick us out after we play.
Dude, you can play on Rodrigo's kid anytime. You'd love his kid, and we would love to have you, man.
Well, that's great, man.
That was a great interview, man. I'm glad that you showed up.
We really appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, no problem.
But I got an idea. So talk to him for a minute. I got an idea. So keep him going. I got an idea. I'm going to keep talking.
This could be anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he could crank up. Did you see the blooper we did with the motorcycles?
I did not. I just saw the fish. I saw how you fished out a microphone. Is that what's in the water back here?
Oh, this is good. This is
so
good.
You're going to put me on the spot here, huh?
What do you want me to do? A paradiddle?
No paradiddles. No paradiddles.
Because I never took drum lessons. So
we're going to jam. Don't worry about it. On the way out, we're going to jam.
All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to give you a little groove here. Well, I'd like to thank Cyrus Bolooki from Newfound Glory for being our guest today on our podcast. I'd like to thank Keith Ridenour, my friend Jason Sedoui. I'm Jim Robinette. And thank you for joining us for Sound Check with Ridenour and Robinette. We have no idea when this is going to be broadcasted, but it's going to be soon. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and live life to the fullest.
Amen.
Hey, yeah, Cyrus, yeah. Thanks for being on the podcast today. Hey, Cyrus, you're a good man. The check's in the mail. I understand. Cyrus.
Oh, yeah.
Hey!
Hey!
Give me drum roll. There you go.
Boom, shakalaka boom. Yeah, buddy.
Am I hired?
Yeah, you're in.
I got
All right,
the
you
gig.
get $1.25 a night and tips.
Nice.
Nice. Beer tab.